All right. So we're going now. So I would love to know why you guys are here. So there's 3 reasons you could be here. You don't want to get pregnant, you want to get pregnant, or you're just curious. You're like, what are you going to teach me about what's going on in my life? And so I would love if you could just sound off in the chat and just tell me, hey, I'm looking to learn more about my cycle, I'm looking to conceive, or I'm looking to not conceive but avoid hormonal birth control. So those would be fantastic things to let me know. That helps me tailor the workshop more to my audience. But we're going to be going through a whole bunch of different things, lots of different information, and really giving you some cool facts and some information that I think it is a criminal that people do not get taught in high school. So we'll start the process here. Oh, there's quite the significant time delay from my thing. Cool. So we're gonna do some fact or fiction. So a lot of people, when they hear the fertility awareness method, they think of it as the rhythm method. That they think that's the exact same thing. And so the rhythm method is essentially pulling out. And so that is fiction. So that is not true. When you're doing the rhythm method, a lot of times people are just using an app on their phone. They're kind of gauging when their fertile window is, and then they're avoiding it. Thank you, Mia, for answering my question while you're here. I'm excited to help you get all the information that you need. So it is fiction that pulling out is the same as the fertility awareness method. An app cannot track your cycle because that means that you're on an algorithm with everyone else. And so you are not just made, everyone is not made to cycle the same way. So that's another one of our fact or fiction. So everyone should have a 28-day cycle. So if you go to an OBGYN and you have anything going on with you, you have anything, you have painful cramps, you have irregular periods, you have PCOS, you have endometriosis, you have infertility, their answer is, let's put you on the pill, let's put you on some hormonal birth control, and let's make your cycle fit into this box. And that box is a 28-day cycle with you ovulating on day 14. What I'm here to tell you is that most people's cycles are somewhere between 21 days and 35 days. That is a normal cycle. The word normal is really hard for me. It's a common cycle, I would say. I've got women that cycle in 40-day increments here. I don't have anyone that's under 21 days, but you want to make sure that you know what your cycle is, because if you just think that you ovulate on day 14 because that's what you're taught in science class, that's what you're taught in health class, but you actually cycle on day 12 and you ovulate on day 12, or you don't ovulate until day 20, then that's when people are missing when they can conceive. And so knowing when you ovulate is the most important part of your cycle. It's actually not knowing about when you bleed. So a lot of people also think that their period and their cycle, because their period that's not the real show. They think that their cycle is only for getting pregnant. That's what it's for. If you're not trying to get pregnant, deleting your cycle, taking the hormonal birth control shot that stops your cycle for 5 years, if you're so active that you lose your cycle, all of that is looked at as a great thing because your period's annoying and it's just, messy underwear and you don't plan for it. But your cycle is really important. It tells you about your health. It tells you about what's going on in your body. It tells you about how your body's adapting to stress. And so if you don't have a cycle, or you have an irregular cycle, or you have a painful cycle, those are all indicators. That's the way your body is intelligently communicating. Like, we all know as ladies that we're smarter than men, right? Am I right? Hope you chuckled at that. But because of that, it's because we have this complexity to us, and we actually have different stages that we can be so super powerful in during our cycle. And when we take hormonal birth control, we actually disconnect ourselves from that feminine power that we can use to our advantage. So your cycle is way more important than just conception. So the next thing, when people go, they're like, well, I got on birth control when I was 15, 16 years old because I had really bad periods and they wanted to regulate it. And so once I got on this, it was really awesome. I barely had any cramps. My acne went away. Everything was great. Well, what's happening right now, there's a thing called epigenetics, and we are in the third generation of women that have had access to hormonal birth control. And right now we know that we just ended National Infertility Awareness Week, but 1 in 8 couples is struggling to conceive. 1 in 4 pregnancies is ending in miscarriage. And we're getting sicker and sicker kids and more difficulty to conceive, or harder pregnancies where women are getting more sick. They're not able to have the health that they should have while they're pregnant. And all of these things is because we're manipulating our hormones. And so the manipulation of the hormone to not get pregnant, while it created a very convenient thing for people who wanted to be sexually active and not conceive, it also created a generational manipulation of hormones. And so that we see bodies that are very estrogen dominant, that aren't creating progesterone the way that they should be, that can't fluctuate with testosterone. We see women getting into menopause earlier and earlier. And actually the fact that 99% of women in the world have been on birth control at some point, this is in our drinking water. And so we're seeing people's periods and people's period health being augmented by the fact that birth control is in the same water that we drink and bathe in. So if you're trying to conceive and you're drinking water full of birth control remnants, do you think that's going to help or hurt you? Right? Pretty crazy. So that's also fiction. So another factor of fiction is a lot of people say, well, it's normal to have period pain. Like, you should be uncomfortable, you should have cramps, you should know. A lot of people that I take care of in our office, I'm a chiropractor, and they come in and they're like, when it's the first day of my period, I am out. I am not okay. I just want to lay down and be in a quiet room, and the pain is so bad I have to take all this pain medicine, I have to call out of work, and that's their life. And because so many women experience that, it's become normal to have that. But it's not normal to have period pain. You should not have cramps, you should not have PMS, you should not have days of a week before that is you're not okay. There shouldn't be a day where you're just biting everyone's head off because you're about to menstruate. None of that is normal. It's very common, but it's not normal. And so we're going to be addressing that. It's like communication is telling you, and there's a lot of different things it could tell you, and each case is different because each woman brings to the table, they bring a different stress, they bring a different history, they bring a different diet, they bring different illnesses and diagnoses with them to it. And so I can't just be like, here, this is what you do to get rid of period pain. But there are so many women that start working with us in the office and start doing what we do, and doing the stuff that we coach, then they start to say, well, the cycle I just had, it was awesome. Have you ever said, wow, this cycle I just had was awesome? It's not something women traditionally talk about. And so that's one of our goals in this workshop and with our care. So here's the one that really shatters the glass ceiling, I think, a lot. But most women believe that you can get pregnant every day of your cycle. We're even taught that in school sometimes out of fear. Like, abstinence is the only way to guarantee that you're not pregnant, and that you can get pregnant any day that you have sex ever. And there's even people who have a lot of ease conceiving children, and they believe that literally every time they have sex, they get pregnant. Well, that is not true. In fact, your egg is only viable for 12 to 24 hours depending on your egg health. So there's only one day that you could get pregnant. Now, the addition to that is that sperm can live in you somewhere between 3 and 7 days. And so there's a lot that goes into making your vagina a healthy host to have sperm live in there that long. But that window that you see if you track with an app is based on an algorithm of just when you get your period and when you get your next period and when you get your next period. Then they kind of like pick the middle and throw your ovulation in there. But a lot of women will have their cycles and they actually won't ovulate. And that's another thing that we'll briefly touch on today. And I believe this is the last factor of fiction, but it is not normal to not know when your period starts. So, I talk to a lot of women about their periods. I'm talking about it all the time. I talk about eating, sleeping, pooping, and periods. Those are my main conversations that I have in my office. But a lot of women are surprised. And, I think it's very humorous that this girl has white pants on, right? Because that's always when it happens, right? You look really cute. It's an awesome day. And then somebody's like, hey, there's there's something on your pants, and you're like, no. But our period gets us completely off guard, because you're like, well, I thought I was supposed to get it last week, but I got it this week, and I don't know why. And then maybe your cycle was 35 days this time and it was 28 last time, and why is that? And so those are the things that you start to learn when you're doing the fertility awareness method, is that you're actually aware of like how your body is responding to the stress in your life. And we'll talk about how we track that and how it tells you that story. But in as little as 3 months, but traditionally for women it's after 6, those little 3 months, you'll actually understand what your body is telling you about your health. And that's what's really incredible about this. It's just a connection to our inner power in the cycle that we were designed with to be able to succeed. Like, women can conceive a child, create a child, deliver a child, and then sustain that child with their body alone. And that's incredible, guys. Like, that's just the most amazing thing. And we can do that because of our period and because we ovulate. And so instead of looking at our period as this like nasty, dirty, horrible thing that's just an inconvenience, it's something to be celebrated, that our body is able to function the way that it is. And so what we call about this is your 5th vital sign. So the 5th vital sign, so what we know our vital signs are, right? We know that it's your heart rate, it's your oxygen rate, it's your pulse, all of that. So when you go to the doctor, you know they're going to check your blood pressure, and they're going to make sure that you have all of your vital signs are within limits. Like today, I had an appointment with a provider, and she checked all my vital signs. That's what she did. She wanted to make sure that before she proceeded with anything, that I was fully operational and not in any danger of anything. And so we have those 4 major vital signs that people check, but the 5th vital sign for women is your cycle. Your cycle can tell you so much about yourself and your life and what's going on, that it will change the way that you respect and honor the way that your body works. So progesterone is this really important hormone. A lot of people bleed and they don't ovulate. Ovulation, which is when the egg releases, gives you this huge dump of this hormone progesterone. A lot of women will come to me and they'll say, I don't have enough progesterone. I took a test. My doctor's putting me on synthetic progesterone or progesterone cream because I'm not able to either get pregnant and stay pregnant, or I have very light periods, or I have a lot of brown bleeding with my periods, either at the beginning and the end, and that's a progesterone issue. But the largest deposit of progesterone happens when you're just after you ovulate, because it creates this thing called the corpus luteum, and that excretes the progesterone out. And if you don't ovulate, you don't get that. So women can be cycling and having a bleed every 4 weeks, but they cannot be ovulating and they won't be getting that progesterone. So progesterone depletes and depletes and depletes until we get into a cycle that could be possibly PCOS. It could be endometriosis. It could be estrogen dominance. So there's lots of things that we look at. The other time that you get the most amount of progesterone is when you're pregnant. And so progesterone maintains a pregnancy. And as you're maintaining your pregnancy, your body's just churning out this progesterone. And that makes us feel good. That is a great, like, relaxing, awesome, kind hormone to have in your body. And that's what we need. When we're very estrogen dominant, we can get stuff done, we can be very powerful, but we can also get kind of domineering. This is not about having a baby. This is what defines us. And so these 4 phases of our cycle, we like to call them in our conversation, me and my friends, as we were creating this, it's your winter, your summer, your spring, and your fall. And so all of those things are what create your cycle. So like you should be doing, and your workouts change on this, and your diet changes on this. There's something called seed cycling. There's certain seeds you should be eating through each part of your cycle that's going to enhance the hormones that are made there. You should not be doing high intensity workouts, CrossFit and stuff like that the week of your menstruation, because your body's literally taking a step back. So it's a really good time to do restorative yoga, to do meditation, to really build into yourself and help your body sustain and rest and heal in that time. Because every time that we shed a lining, we're actually losing a part of our body that we made. And so honoring that whole thing and knowing like, hey, I'm really getting stuff done this week. This is awesome. This is really great. It's because you're probably pre-ovulation. And then once you ovulate, you can maintain that, but not as the same intensity. And so you should be changing how you do your life, how you plan things. So if you have like a big talk, a big presentation at work, and that falls on the week of your period, it's not going to be as great as if you could schedule that talk to fall on the week that you ovulate. But what woman knows what week she ovulates if she's not tracking her cycle? There's my beautiful thing. So this is your summer, winter, spring and fall. And so just understanding that, like, in the spring we're rebuilding, this is new. In the summer, that's when we have the harvest, when we ovulate. Then as ovulation, if we don't conceive, then we go into the winter time and we're shedding. And so knowing and honoring that, just like the year has seasons, I'm in Florida, so we don't really have seasons, but in general, we have ish seasons. Your body has the seasons that you go through each month and each cycle, which is, I just think, one of the coolest things. So let's talk about stress in your cycle. So a lot of people will come and they say, hey, I have endometriosis, I have PCOS, I have life stress. Stress debilitates your cycle. So stress is going to shut you down. It can interfere with your hormonal shifts. So whether it's coming from work, from it's emotional, whether it's traveling, whether it's extensive exercising, maybe you just started to exercise, maybe you don't have great nutrition, maybe you've started different medications. This can all cause ovulation disruption. And so the point of our cycle, guys, is that we're ovulating. And so we want to track ovulation. And I'm giving you a lot of information before we get to the nitty-gritty of the fertility awareness, because I don't want you to get frustrated when you start tracking your cycle and you're like, well, I don't know if I'm ovulating, or I don't think I'm ovulating. That you should know. And if you're not ovulating, then that's when we can start breaking down and figuring out why is it that you're not ovulating. Not all stress is bad, but your body can't necessarily tell the difference. But you need to, how you're responding to stress and how your body's adapting to stress is really the most important thing, and something that we focus on with chiropractic in our office. So when stress is not taken care of, it's going to start stealing your progesterone. So progesterone and cortisol, a lot of people understand that cortisol is your stress hormone. These are both made in your adrenal glands. So your adrenal glands are a big part of like managing stress. And so when you have the opportunity, your body thinks that you're fleeing from a tiger because work is awful and your relationship is awful and all this stuff is happening. Your cortisol is like, hey, I need to make more of this because I need to respond to stress. And it's going to go over to your progesterone and it's going to steal that because they have the same first building blocks. And so the more stressed you are, the more progesterone that you don't make and the more cortisol your body devours. And then usually when we're stressed out, we don't work out. And so the most effective way to burn cortisol is 15 minutes of light weightlifting. And I'm talking light, guys. I'm talking if you have a couple gallons of water and you just do 15 minutes of like picking those puppies up like a kettlebell, then that will burn your cortisol for the whole day. But it's a daily thing. So the other thing that cortisol does is it impairs your insulin secretion. So the number one cause of PCOS and difficulty with periods and difficulty with conception from all of my research and all of my training is insulin sensitivity problem. And so that insulin sensitivity problem is enhanced by cortisol. So it's going to stop your body from being able to assimilate the sugar in there. It's going to deposit. So then we see women with PCOS and endometriosis putting on weight. We see them bloated. We see them not able to adapt. And all of that. Yes, Victoria. Band exercises would work for that as long as you kept the resistance high. So it's light weightlifting. So you could totally do that. You could also do TRX because you're using your body weight. But it's not like CrossFit. It's not high intensity. It's just moving your body for 15 minutes. Great question. So blood sugar spikes are a concern. They contribute to chronic inflammation, which will enhance... Tori, I love you. Victoria is sitting next to me, so sorry about that. Love you, girl. So... I just made me lose my spot because I was like, hey, Tori, change your name on here so I know who you are. So endometriosis is the most common cause of secondary pain during menstruation. So endometriosis, if you don't know, is when menstrual tissue, like the tissue that sheds inside of our uterus, goes to different parts of the body and attaches there and then sheds into your body, like into your abdomen. And so that's very painful. There's blood where it shouldn't be. There's cells just shedding where they shouldn't be. And all of that really, really negatively affects how your body is. And so when you can manage your stress, it's going to help decrease the chronic inflammation, which is going to help pain. It's going to improve your organ function. The ways that we can do this is you want to get adjusted. So, that's my number one go-to as a chiropractor. That's something that I really care about. You are going to pay attention to your dietary and lifestyle factors. You're going to assess your nutrient deficiencies. So we're very, very nutrient deficient, especially in minerals, which is a big part. What does everyone tell you when you have muscle cramps, right? They're like, you need to eat bananas, you need to take magnesium. Well, those are core mineral nutrients that we're not getting from our soils because the food that we eat just doesn't have it. So you want to address that. You want to reduce your exposure to endocrine disrupting chemicals, and that's going to be by detoxing your personal care and your household things. We have endocrine disruptors, so endocrine glands are glands that excrete, such as your thyroid gland, your adrenal glands, your uterus, your ovaries. Those are all endocrine glands. And so if you have all of this stuff that you're putting on your body, so your skin absorbs things in less than 60 seconds. The average woman puts 247 chemicals on her body before she walks out the door in the morning. And that's from what you wash your body with, what you washed your clothes with, and it's on, you're absorbing in your skin, your lotions, your shampoos, your makeups, everything. All of that is actually starting to manipulate how the hormones are working in our body. And it's really scary stuff. You're going to be invited to a group that I have where I talk about that. I talk about detoxing your life and your products and some suggestions for some products that actually work. And so stay tuned for that. But how much you sleep, how often you sleep, how long you sleep, what quality of sleep is, being able to get mindful, to practice meditation, and you want to reduce your consumption of garbage food, or what we call pro-inflammatory food. So I'm in a world where I believe that you're supposed to eat dairy, you're supposed to eat gluten, you're supposed to eat meat, but the quality of those things and the amount of those things, if you're eating cheese pizza every day from Domino's, that's not going to get you into a good place. But if you're having some sourdough bread sometime, you're having some goat cheese sometime on the charcuterie board, right, at this weekend at your friend's party, and you're being really consistent with the quality of the food that's intaking you, then I don't think you have to get rid of food. But I do think that you need to be very careful about the sourcing of your food. Yes, PCOS and insulin resistance, they're best friends. 80% of PCOS is insulin resistant PCOS. And if you've been diagnosed with PCOS, then you need to ask your doctor, what kind of PCOS do I have? Because there's 4 kinds. One is actually hypothalamic amenorrhea, and this is all coming from the book, The Fifth Vital Sign, and I'll talk about that at the end. But we can dive deep into that, on a one-on-one talk, Mia. But it's pretty powerful how your body and what you put in it really works. But let's start talking about what you guys are here for. So let's talk about this fertility awareness method. It is so simple, y'all. It is the most simple thing ever, and the fact that we are not taught this angers me as women. So what the fertility awareness is, so let's just talk about what it is. It is the way that you determine which days of your cycle are fertile or not fertile, okay? So you are going to learn to identify what your fertile window is, and by using the fertility awareness method, you will preserve your fertility for the rest of your life, right? And so if we aren't lying to our bodies from 15, 16, and then all of a sudden expecting our body to turn on at 30 and conceive, then we're going to see healthier pregnancies, we're going to see healthier kids, we're going to see ease and more of an ease that comes with conceiving and not conceiving, and it's really going to change the world, literally one family at a time, if we can share this. And that's why I've created this workshop. So contraceptives are $1 billion industry, guys. They're making tons and tons of millions of dollars. And let me tell you a fun fact. So they made male contraceptive products, okay? This is real. They created them and they went to test them. Now, they lowered testosterone, so they affected the male hormone. And the side effects, which were exactly the same as the female side effects, depression, anxiety, libido loss, and not to mention all the other just crazy things from depleting your hormones. But those are the big ones, right? The men wouldn't even complete the trial. As soon as they lost those things, they literally refused to continue. And the men who were running the test said, we can't do this. We're not going to put this out. It's not a viable product. It affects the quality of life of men too much. If you're not freaking flabbergasted right now, I don't know who you are. So men who did this study and men who created this drug received the same ridiculous side effects and manipulation that hormonal contraceptives did due to women on a regular basis, and said it was too wrong and too hard, so we can't do it. I mean, it makes me furious. So if that doesn't just shock you, I don't know who you are. So the fertility awareness method is going to allow you to maintain your natural menstrual cycles, because science, I mean, you weren't designed broken. You weren't designed to like only have these cycles for no reason. Like you literally want a new uterus every time you have a new egg, because you want to have the best stuff for your baby, right? Like your body just wants to keep preparing and rehearsing. So when it's showtime and it's time to conceive, to have this radiantly healthy child, they want the best, most on-point uterus that's there. And so that's part of why we cycle. But we also cycle because there's all different things that we need to be able to do as a woman that we have power in each different week of our cycle. So the how of the fertility awareness method, is tracking your cervical mucus, tracking your basal body temperature, and tracking your cervical position. Cervical position is actually optional, but it's a good bonus, and it helps you really understand, it connects you to that. Because another thing, and I talked to a pelvic floor therapist, Dr. Sarah, about this morning, but we are educated and raised up in a society that completely detaches us from the power that is our reproductive organs. We are told that it's dirty, that it's wrong. We're never given the name vagina. You don't know. Most women don't know that the vagina is different from the vulva, which is different from the clitoris, which is different from the labia. Like all of these different things are just like, down there's my vagina, down there's my downtowns, down there's this thing, that's my special place, that's my naughty place, that's my, all these different words, and we're taught like this is bad. And then women hide tampons and pads up in their sleeves and walk to the bathroom, and they're really discreet about it because it's just not something you're supposed to share about or talk. When our daughters get their periods, it's this like big thing where they aren't celebrated that they've crossed over from being a child to a woman. They're said like, oh gosh, well now you have to do all this, and then here's these toxic body products, because what's in tampons and pads is chlorine, formaldehyde, all sorts of terrible toxins. A lot of women stop having cramps in their period once they start using a cup, or they start using fabric reusable pads. Like, we have been so disconnected from what's going on with us that we don't even understand what a normal cycle should be. So I'm just gonna, I went the wrong way, excuse me. So let's talk about cervical mucus, okay? And I just want to talk about the effectiveness of fertility awareness method. It's 99.4% effective when you use all three methods. So if you are doing your temperature, tracking your cervical mucus, and checking your cervical position, literally you have a 99.4% chance, which is the same efficacy as the condom and the same efficacy as birth control, if you do it appropriately. And appropriate is really consistently. That's what it is. And after you do it for 6 months, if you miss a day, you're not going to be like, oh God, I don't know anything. But you'll be able to like miss a day, say you travel or whatever, or you'll know like, hey, this week I'm not fertile, so it's going to be fine. And you'll be tracking that and seeing it. So cervical mucus, this is the main basis for many, many methods of natural family planning, which is another name for this. But the fertility awareness method uses these three in conjunction, and is the most scientifically backed up one. So we want to know that our cervical mucus, that this is the sign for fertility. If you have cervical mucus, you are fertile. If you don't know what I'm talking about and you've never experienced cervical mucus, you've never experienced a dampness when you wipe, you've never experienced just like that slick feeling when you wipe, then that's an indicator that you're not ovulating. And again, if you're not ovulating, you're missing a huge window of health with that drop of progesterone that comes after ovulation. Your cervical mucus should fluctuate throughout the entire cycle. That what we call cervical mucus that works is called egg white cervical mucus. So that is like the mamma jamma number one. This is the time you can get pregnant with all the greatness. So egg white cervical mucus is cervical mucus that you can take with your hands, and you're going to pull that apart, and it's not going to break. So it's very springy. And you don't have to like touch it with your fingers, guys. You can use your toilet paper. So if you're like, this is so gross, like this is not gross. I mean, do you blow your nose? You're good. It's the same thing. It's not the same thing, but it's the same constituents of things. You will have cervical mucus. There's peak and non-peak cervical mucus. And again, this is something that I can dive in with a person one-on-one more. But the best is like very stretchy. But any cervical mucus at all means that you're in your fertile window. It is present 2 to 3 days before ovulation. And it is literally the sign that tells you this is an opportunity for you to get pregnant. Drinking water really affects your cervical mucus production. So if you don't have any, like right now I'm talking about something in this and you're like, I don't think I've ever seen this. Would you also agree that you're chronically dehydrated? That the number one thing that you put in your mouth is not water, but it's anything but water? And maybe it's tea, maybe it's coffee, maybe it's soda, maybe it's juice. All of those things dehydrate you. They don't rehydrate you. So for every coffee or tea that you drink, you need to have 2 glasses of water to replace the amount of liquid that you're going to use. You actually expel 6 cups of liquid over the day just talking with what comes out of your mouth. And you need 6 cups just to have a bowel movement. So water is very important to your body's function. Not just, hey, you're 70% water, so you need to have it. You literally cannot do the things you need to do if you're chronically dehydrated. So you should be drinking a lot of water, a lot more. Your pee should be a light yellow or clear. So if you have dark pee, then you are dehydrated. So the second thing that you're going to look for, it's called the symptothermal method. And so what you want to see is that you will see that your body, when you take temperatures, you're going to take your temperature first thing in the morning and you're going to leave the thermometer in your mouth before you turn it on. So if you're going to do it perfect, like Lisa Henderson Jack talks about in the 5th vital sign, it's going to be 10 minutes. So you're literally going to place the thermometer in your mouth. You're going to leave it there for 10 minutes. You're going to turn it on probably at the 7-minute mark, because like my thermometer actually waits 4 minutes to read the temperature. You're going to turn it on after it's been in there. You're not drinking, you're not talking, you just have your mouth shut. So you just wake up, you set your intention for the day. Maybe you start scrolling the book face, whatever you need to do, but you're just going to stay still. If you stand up, go to the bathroom, you raise your temperature. So it's literally you wake up after 4 consecutive hours of sleep and you put that in your mouth, you wait. 10 minutes is hard for me because I have 2 small humans, so I really get 4 minutes in there if I'm just being honest and transparent. And it's going to give you a temperature. It's going to give you a temperature to the 2 decimal points. So you want a basal body temperature. You don't just want any like ear. It needs to go in your mouth or in your armpit. Those are the 2 areas that we really see that. So it's going to go to 2 decimal points. So what you're going to see is you're going to see lower temps consistently before ovulation. And then you're going to see a sustained rise in temps after ovulation. So what happens in a traditional cycle is like you're doing your thing, you realize that you have cervical mucus, right? And you've been having consistent, maybe you have a 97.17, right? Like that's your temperature, that's your temperature, that's your temperature. And then all of a sudden you see cervical mucus. So now you know I'm in my fertile window. And then you keep taking your temperature and then the next day you're 98.17. That is a signal that you have ovulated. Once there's a temperature spike, the ovulation has happened and you cannot conceive. It's over. The window is closed. So a lot of people that learn about this actually wait for the temperature spike and then have sex, but only to find out that they've actually missed their window. So you want, as soon as the cervical mucus shows up and you'll start to learn about your cycle as you're tracking it, then you're going to put that information in there and then you'll see at that spike, that's the time you ovulated. So now a lot of women will come to me and they'll say, I had mucus, but I had no spike. Then you didn't ovulate. So more than likely, unless, and we can talk about stress and if you had a cough or you were sleep, there's different things like that that go into that. But you can have cervical mucus and your body can prepare for ovulation, but if you're stressed and your nutrient load and everything isn't there, then instead of the egg releasing, it won't, and you won't get that temperature spike. So that's a lot of times people will tell me, well, I have a regular period, but I'm still not getting pregnant, and their issue is they're not ovulating, and we can confirm that. And they're like, well, I have cervical mucus, and I'm like, well, are you doing temping? And they're like, well, I'm not really consistent with it. Or I do. I said, well, are you getting a temperature spike? And they're like, I don't even know what that is. So that's one of the things that you want to look for, because if you're not ovulating, then your cycle isn't healthy. And ovulation, again, is the point of our cycle. The point of our cycle is not bleeding. So we want to see that rise in temperature after our cervical mucus, and that is how they pair together. Does anyone have any questions about that? That's like the Mamma Jamma, the main event. I'll just wait a second to see if anybody has that. And my husband sent me all these text messages, probably tell me. He's telling me to make the mic more vertical. Here we go. Nobody's asking me any questions. Okay, if you do, I'm going to keep going. So this is how you know when not to have sex to not get pregnant. It's this simple. So you're going to look for a basal body temperature thermometer. This is on Amazon, guys. You're probably not waiting long enough, Tori. It's got to be 4 minutes at minimum. But 10 minutes is what Lisa Henderson Jack says. And she's the woman who wrote The Fifth Vital Sign, and it's the easiest book to read about this. So I know many of you on here have read that already. Basal body temp confirms that you ovulated. It will never tell you when you're going to ovulate. The only thing that will indicate that you're about to ovulate is your cervical mucus and your cervical position. Okay, so this is a very, very easy way to look for your cervical position. Oh, Mia, I'm so sorry you've been doing it wrong. I'm going to tell you, I did it wrong in the beginning too. So your cervical position, the best time to do this is you're going to feel that your cervix is open and higher when you have estrogen. When you have progesterone, which means that you did ovulate, it firms, it closes, it sits lower and tilts backwards. So the difference between an open and closed cervix, so an open cervix is going to allow you to get pregnant. So that's your estrogen that is increasing right up into ovulation. And so an open cervix feels like if you keep your mouth closed, like you pucker your lips, and you feel it. It feels like that soft, like kind of opening right there. A closed cervix feels like if you push on your nose. It's that firmness. So the best way to do this is in the shower, in the morning. You always want to check it at the same time of day. So if you're like, I shower every morning before I do all this stuff, this is for you. If you're like me, I don't shower every day. Full disclosure, it's not my jam. But then you want to do something, you're always brushing your teeth. So maybe you brush your teeth and you check your cervix. So you want to commit to doing this for a full cycle, because you really can't understand what your cervix is going to feel like until you've done it and feel that change. So this is the hardest one. It's definitely an optional thing, but again, for someone who's really trying to not conceive, like their whole goal is like, I am not conceiving, they want to add this in for that complete assurance that they know when their cervix will allow sperm in and when it will shut it down. Because you can have sex outside of your fertile window, and your vagina is a hostile environment to sperm. Literally, they will all just die. You need cervical mucus because cervical mucus actually mimics sperm. And this is the coolest thing ever. Your cervical mucus actually filters out the bad sperm. So once sperm interact with cervical mucus, it changes the outside of the sperm, and it makes it so that it qualifies or it doesn't qualify to inseminate, and then it will move up into this area called the cervical crypts in your cervix, and it will wait there until the egg is released. But if the egg is released, then it will go straight up there, and then it qualifies to be able to impregnate. And there's more and more research coming out that the egg actually chooses the sperm that it allows to go in, which I think is just so cool, personally. So again, I could talk about this all night, guys. So if that just made you excited and you want to talk about it, let me know. We can get on Marco Polo and chat about cycles and sperm, and how this is why IUI and IVF are frustrating ways to conceive. They're great when people need to conceive that way, but they take the sperm and they actually work around the body's ability to filter out the ones that should not conceive, and they force conception. So if you are desperate for a baby and that's your option, great. There's no shame in that, but there is another way, and I know about it. About how far up is the cervix? Just how far the cervical position is. So it's the tip of your two fingers, and then if you have a low cervix, if it's 2/3 of your fingers if you have a medium, and it's basically all your fingers all the way up. So you would want to squat down get into a deep squat, and then you'll place your hands up inside, and you won't have to go too far. The highest you would have to go to is here, and you would be able to touch the cervix. But when you get into that deep squat, you actually bring your cervix down. So if anyone on here has ever been pregnant, when they check you, they actually bring your legs all the way up. And it's easier to check your cervix that way to see if you're dilated and ready to go. So right after ovulation, your cervical position will shift to a low, firm, closed, and it often tilts backwards. So really in your first cycle, you are getting to know your cervix. It's like, hey, do you want to be friends? Do you want to hang out? Should we get coffee sometime? I'm getting to know you. After you do it for 3 cycles, then you're going to be like, okay, this is what it means for my cervix to be low. This is what it means for my cervix to be firm. And this is what it means for my cervix to be soft. If you are a woman who has already had a baby, you will tend to have a more open cervix more of the time, just because you put a baby through there, and so it just won't ever get as firm as it is pre-conception for your first baby. All right, guys, this is your opportunity for questions, and I will put that, and then we will close. Which is awesome. I feel like this is good. You guys think this is good? You liking it? You learning? 10 viewers. I feel famous. You guys can ask me some questions. I will start doing my closing remarks, but again, I'm here for any questions that you guys have. What thermometer do you use? I use, it's called Premom. It's on Amazon. I tried 2 others. I didn't like them, so it's PREMOM. If you search that on Amazon, it's a little white and purple thermometer. What's really cool about it is it has its own app, and it automatically Bluetooths it to it. So in my stupor, because I'm so tired all the time. And you know, guys, I'm doing this and I do not have 4 hours of consecutive sleep before this, because my daughter feeds and then I get up around 6:30. And so she feeds around sometimes 3, sometimes 4. And so, again, that's going to be a hitch in my giddy-up, but I'm not trying to not conceive. That would be very hard on us if we were like, no, we're not having a baby right now, but we're going to get pregnant in the next month because I'm tracking my cycle and I'm ready. That's my goal anyway, if God says that. You'll know it tilts, Mia, because you will feel it go away from you. So you'll get accustomed to what your cervix feels like again. So your first cycle, you're just basically an idiot, and you're just up there and you're like, am I feeling my cervix? Is this it? It's going to feel the same 3 weeks of it, and 1 week it's going to feel open. And so as you're tracking, you can kind of keep in line with it and be like, all right, so I know I have cervical mucus, my temperature is consistent here. So right now, if I have cervical mucus and I know that I have been ovulating on day 14, 15, 16, maybe 12, depending on who you are, I'm going to feel up there and see if I have an open cervix. But you have to do it every day to get to know it. And so it'll tilt backwards. It's not like this crazy tilt. It's more of like a from here to here, which makes it, close to sperm. So I really want to get to chart with paper. Charting with paper is great because you can actually look at all your cycles at once. I currently am tracking in the app, because the Premom app has everything that's on a paper chart. But you can track if you were intimate, you can track your period, you can track what kind of period, was it heavy, was it light, you can track your cervical mucus, what kind of cervical mucus it was, you can track any stress in your life, you can actually change different things that you can track. So it's like a paper chart, but it's digital. But then I can't look at my last 3 cycles all at the same time and see a trend. So paper charting is awesome. And so in a perfect world where I don't have tiny humans, I would probably use my app to like record my temperature and stuff during the week, and then like one time a weekend I would sit down and I would just transfer it all to a paper chart and like reflect on my week. But it really takes less than 20 minutes a day, because you're going to wake up, you're going to wait, you're going to take your temperature, you're going to record it, you're going to go to the bathroom, you're going to check your cervical mucus, you brush your teeth, you check your cervical position, you document all of that. And then at the end of the night, you'll document if your cervical mucus changes throughout the day. And if you feel like it was different at all. A lot of people get confused with cervical mucus because there's always some sort of sensation that's down there, because your vagina is a lubricated thing. But cervical mucus is like a significant difference. Like there is dampness, there is stuff on your toilet paper. Like it's happening. It is not missing at all. So it's very different from just like the sensation. And you don't need to dig into your vagina to get that. It's literally just what you do when you wipe. So when you wipe front to back, what you're going to do is just take a glance at your toilet paper and see if there's any cervical mucus. Then you'll go like this with your toilet paper and see if it's sticky at all. Even if it's not sticky, it's still, if there's cervical mucus, it's still a possibility that you could get pregnant in that time. Also, there are women who ovulate twice a month. This is not all the time. This is how some women have twins. And they would know that if they were tracking their cycles. So this is a very simple thing. The thing that's hard about it, the complexity comes with consistency, with continuing to do this on a daily basis, day in and day out, and be connected to who we are. But could you imagine if our high school health class focused on uniting us to the power within us instead of showing us that the easiest thing is to just turn this off and not be connected to it until you want to conceive? Like, just imagine the whole slew of women and girls that would be like, hey, getting your period is awesome. It's a sign that you're a woman. It's indicative of your health. And every time you ovulate, you are doing a deposit into your health bank account. What we're seeing right now, especially epigenetically, is what it's called. That's EPI genetically. Is that because we are the third generation of women who have been on birth control, we have the frailest spines. More and more women are falling and breaking things, breaking their hips, breaking ribs, because progesterone is also a part, and insulin and vitamin D in that whole cycle, and making sure your bones are strong. So when you don't ovulate, you don't put a deposit in that long-term health bank account that gives you health in your menopausal years and beyond. And so we need to ovulate. Every woman should ovulate as much as possible. You're going to miss it because you're stressed out. You're going to miss it because, you're moving. You're going to miss it because you decided to just start doing CrossFit and you're asking your body to do too much. And your body says, hey, this is not a good time to conceive, because she's literally running from a tiger all the time. So understanding what your body, how it responds to things is really important. So if you are taking finals this week and then you see next month that you don't ovulate and you look back and you're like, I wonder how that affected me, because my body thought, hey, she's not okay, so we're not going to ovulate this month. And then how did that affect your next cycle? If you're tracking that and there's space in either the apps or, and this is not like an app that tracks your period. This is an app that tracks your temperature. So you want a temperature tracking app. A lot of people love Flow, F-L-O. Oh, Mia, that makes me so happy that you bought it for your niece. Lisa Henderson Jack also has an incredible podcast. It is a very long podcast, guys. Like, it is 60 minutes plus. So you have to have some time. You need to be cleaning the house, put on your headphones. Not your AirPods, though, because that's a lot of radiation in your brain. So get some regular headphones to go outside of your ears. Don't use AirPods. We can talk about that again. Again, I could get on a soapbox about 1,000 things. But listen to that. She has some really cool things that are very, very focused on whether it's PCOS or postpartum or breastfeeding and tracking your cycle and all sorts of stuff like that. So she has so many cool things. And she has people who she's doing live charting with and are going through her class. And she'll go through that and she'll interview them and they'll just talk about what their cycle history is and all of that. So this is just a general intro. I hope this gave you a lot of information. You are going to get emailed to you a resource list. Thank you, Kevin. Yes, it will. We will have a replay, or possibly if we don't have a replay, because I don't like this one, I will be doing it again in June. So I want to make myself available to you as a resource. What I do in my office is I use the fifth vital sign, your period, your cycle, because it's not really your period, it's about your cycle, to see what your body is telling me about your stress. Hi, Danielle. I never know who people are because your names are all different. So that's fun. And so Natural Cycles app is great, Tasha. It's a great app. Because it's not focused on putting you in an algorithm. It's focused on understanding what your cycle is. But you never trust an app. You always trust your signs. You always trust your cervical mucus and waiting for that spike in your temperature. So an app is a great place to start, but you should never they have a temp, I think it's not temp drop, there's a new thermometer out there that you put in your mouth and it turns green if you're fertile. And that is based off of very little information. So don't ever go with anything that's an algorithm. You want to go with something that you know and you make that decision. So I do a protocol in the office. It's called the Schaefer Protocol. The Schaefer Protocol is about enhancing a person's natural health. I work with a lot of couples that are frustrated that they cannot conceive. They've gone through the fertility process. They've done IVF and it's failed. They've done IUI and it's failed. Or they've just been trying for a year and they haven't been able to get pregnant. And that's not a financially feasible, or it's not a philosophically feasible thing for them. That's what I do. And so the reason I did this class was I just want more women and more people to have this power, this information, to be able to track their cycles. And so if you are interested, that you would want to work with me, maybe talk about this, spend some more time, do a consult in my office. I'm in Jacksonville, Florida. So if you're in like Michigan, reach out to me and I'll find somebody for you. But I would love to be a resource for you. So I'll do that at a discount. So traditionally a consult in our office is $100. So we do it for $75. You sit down with me. We could talk about this, see if chiropractic and the Schaefer Protocol and what I do and what I know is a great avenue for you to reach some of your frustrations, whether it's PCOS, whether it's detoxing off birth control, whether it's conceiving, whether it's not conceiving, and all of those things. I'm going to be giving you guys a resource list. So that resource list is going to tell you about a couple of the books that I love. I will totally help you out with a chart. We can go over that, Mia, on your next appointment. Taking charge of your fertility is like the Bible of this. It's very dense. It is very, very, very dense. So if you're super nerdy and that's what you love, then I highly recommend that book. The Fifth Vital Sign is my favorite because I feel like it's very well organized. It's straight to the point. It is not too sciencey, but it gives really awesome advice and it's entertainingly written. So you're very engaged in it. The Woman Code is really amazing about learning about what the power that's in the cycle and how amazing your body can be if you lean into the power of your spring, summer, winter, and fall. And then the Period Repair Manual is really great for those who are frustrated with their period, whether they're irregular, whether they're painful, whether they are frustrating, any of that, whether you don't like it that they're too heavy or they're too light. All of those things count as irregularities. So you'll get a resource list that has those things. I highly recommend the Fertility Friday podcast with Lisa Henderson-Jack. She is the author of The Fifth Vital Sign. And then there's a couple of people that you can follow on Instagram. And so I am going to send you that resource list to the email that you provided. If you don't get that, please reach out to me. You guys can follow us on Facebook at Sancha Chiropractic. You can friend me on Facebook, Bridget Colleen Farrar. So my professional name is Edkin. My personal name is Farrar. So that's Farrar. And we will be sending you that. So check out your emails tomorrow so you can see that. And that is my story. So if anyone has any final questions, we just hit an hour and 2 minutes. I wanted to be an hour. And I hope that I answered everything for you and gave you guys some value today. So let me know that you loved it. Let me know if you want more. We'll be doing a preconception workshop. I'm fine. We'll be doing a preconception workshop coming up probably in May, and we'll be doing a postpartum depletion workshop as well. So if you think this is great, share it with your friends. Let them know that this is an opportunity for them when I go live, that they can ask me questions, and we'll have some sort of playback feature probably until I do the next one, and then we'll re-up it. But I appreciate you guys' attention. But this whole time I had 8 to 10 people on here, and that made me feel awesome. So you're awesome, Mia. You're awesome, Tori. Thank you guys for interacting. And if there was any way that I could make this better, I would love to do that for you. Danielle, I will figure out how to get you the link to the replay. I'm sure it'll be in the email. That's not my husband's side of this jam. I just make the stuff and he makes it so that you all can have it. I love you. Have a fantastic night. And I'm so excited that you are interested in this. God bless you.